Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Ahoy, ahoy.
We talk about horror movies, and that means that this is a special day because it is the 1st of October, and that means that it is the beginning of the Octoberthon 2019, where we are aiming for 31 episodes in 31 days. Now, admittedly, that's including the 4 bonus Patreon episodes, so you have to be a patron to get all 31. But every day, an episode. We're to begin Creepshow. We're talking about Creepshow. Creepshow is the opening movie of Octoberthon 2019, which is super cool and exciting because obviously the TV show just launched. Now, we have not had a chance to see it yet because we are recording this in the past before we get to that. But that's why we chose Creepshow to be the opening movie this year. And it's an anthology film, of course, but Stephen King, who's also in it, but is based on Stephen King stories. So...
Yeah, it's written by Stephen King, directed by George Romero.
Yes.
A winning combination, in my opinion.
George Romero, of course, the director of the Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead.
And Monkey Shines.
Land of the Dead, Monkey Shines. Didn't he also do Martin? Was that him? Was that Romero?
Yep, he did Martin.
Yeah,
yep.
I thought it was him.
Martin, did he do that? What was that movie, The Crazies? That might have been him.
Oh, yeah, he did the original Crazies, yeah.
Yeah. Night Riders, The Dark Half.
Oh, I've seen The Dark Half. Yeah.
It's another King Romero collaboration. I think they were good friends. I think there's a few other King movies that Romero was supposed to do that just ended up not working out. I could be wrong, but I think originally Romero might have been in talks to do Pet Sematary, I think, and then just ended up not working out. But I think it was a few other projects that he was supposed to do.
Don't want to be buried in a pet cemetery. I don't want to live my life again. Okay. Yeah. It's the best part of that movie is the song. I'm saying it right now.
It is a very good part.
So yeah, so there's 5 stories? Yes, there's 5.
Plus, 5 plus the wraparound, if you count that.
Yeah, there's a wraparound. I'll put at the start and the end. But yeah, there's 5 stories in Creepshow. Unlike some other movies, we can't really do a spoiler-free section beyond just giving our general opinion, which we'll do. But once we start talking about the plots, we kind of have to do each one on its own. So we can't really do spoiler-free sections for each one. But
so just basically, if you just say the plot, it's kind of like it feels like a throwback to kind of old EC comics. It's very Tales from the Crypt, that kind of. All one-off stories, and in this case they're kind of being told through almost like a what do you call it, through the lens of a horror comic book, and there's a very comic booky kind of feel to it.
Yeah, because the wraparound sets up this kid's got this horror comic that the dad wants to throw out, and that becomes kind of the setup of where the stories are coming from. So and some of the stories do feel very Tales from the Crypt. There's 1 or 2 of them that really felt Tales from the Crypty to me.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that.
I agree with that.
So, So I mean, I know the answer to this because you've mentioned it a lot. But Tim, do you enjoy Creepshow?
I absolutely love this movie. Honestly, this is probably top 10 horror movies for me. I love a good anthology movie.
Top 10. I thought you were going to say top 10 anthology movies, and I was like, that's fair. We're top 10 horror movies. I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, it's maybe top 10 is a little tough. Definitely top 20 for sure. I think maybe when we did our official countdown before, I want to say I might have had this maybe around the 12, 13-ish area. But I don't know, lists are fluid living beings, so sometimes they change and evolve. But I mean, this is very high up there for me. I mean, I love anthologies. I love Stephen King. I love George Romero. I love comic books, and just the idea of kind of marrying these two, and to the point where you'll get comic book kind of panels and effects throughout the stories. And I don't know, now I could be wrong here, but have you actually seen this before? Because I know I'd actually talked to a decent amount of people who actually haven't watched this.
I had seen this before. I've never seen the sequels, but I'd seen the first one before.
Okay, because I know I had like a friend or something that actually had like never seen it, which I I thought was like crazy. But like
You've never seen Creepshow?
well, I don't know. It was like a staple for me. Like like growing up, it was like a one of those perennial movies that I would watch like over and over again. I just really dug it, and it's like there's a bit of cheesiness to it. And like some stuff maybe people might think is kind of outdated, but it still really works for me. I really love it. It's a great movie. Maybe like there's like the one story. I'll just say the last one. I'm not like crazy about that story. I think it's good, but I'm not as fond of it as I am with the other ones. And like a lot of really good performances in this. Like this movie has like a lot of who's the guy? It's got Ed Harris, Ted Danson, Leslie Nielsen, Adrienne Barbeau. And I don't know if you know who plays the young kid in the beginning, but that's a young Joe Hill.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And of course, Tom Atkins. I can't forget him. So it's a star-studded cast.
Yeah,
and,
but it's Tom Atkins without a mustache, which is not peak Tom
true.
Atkins. I can't accept this.
If there's unfortunately that is going to dock my score a little bit, but not too much. But Tom Savini, I believe, is in at the end too, as one of the trash men.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right. I recognized them when I watched this the other night. You're right. I don't like this as much as you do, but I do enjoy it quite a bit. I actually agree the last story is the worst one. In fact, the last story, I have to admit, I'm sitting here thinking about it. I barely remember it right now. Like I'm trying, I remember what it looked like. I'm trying to remember what the actual plot of it was in my head right now, and I can't do it. So,
I mean, it's essentially like a cockroaches are gross movie.
Yeah, when we get there, like I'm going to let you carry the plot synopsis of that one, I think. But so no, it's a pretty solid anthology. I think there's two stories in particular for me that stand out as being quite good. And there's a couple of okay ones, and then the last one's kind of shitty. Which for me kind of puts it into kind of a similar kind of like, as any anthology I like, it tends to be that kind of ratio. It's kind of like, I'll really like about a third of it. I think a third of it's not bad, and then there'll be a third that's like, like that tends to be my ratio for anthologies. So like I say, there's an interesting cast in here. It does have a nice kind of like self-aware sense of humor to it. It's not taking itself super seriously, which is part of why it feels a little bit like Tales from the Crypt. It has that same kind of vibe. One story in particular really feels like a Tales from the Crypt episode, and it's one of the good ones, to be fair. But all of that said, though, Tales from the Crypt got so bad towards the end, and we just finished that a couple months ago, that I was like, no, don't make me think of Tales from the Crypt. Stop it. Stop with this comic book nonsense. I don't want to think of Tales from the Crypt.
Yesterday my wife asked me, she was like, are you still doing the Tales from the Crypt episodes? I was like, no, we finished. We're done.
Yeah, they're all there for her to binge if she wants to watch them. Just FYI, you can give her a link to the playlist, Timmy. I felt bad that we got a comment on like the last episode or whatever it was, saying, "Hey, love these reviews, but you missed an episode." And I was like, "What? We did what?"
Oh no! Oh no!
And they were like, "Yeah, episode 4 of season 7. Like, it's not here. Like, could you do that just so you've done the whole thing?" And then I was like, "We didn't skip any episodes." And it turned out what had happened is I just forgot to add it to the playlist. Like, so we'd done it. It was on YouTube. It just wasn't in the playlist. So I added it in so that it's there now. But I was like, oh, I almost thought we had to do one more. I was like, oh.
I mean, that would have been like its own like Tales from the Crypt-esque ending where like you think you're safe and then all of a sudden like, no.
It came back from beyond the grave. Yeah. We still have to do the rest of the movies though, admittedly, from after the show. At some
honestly,
point.
I don't know if we have any open spaces in October. I would love to fit the first one in because that would be a really fun movie. Maybe you haven't seen the Demon Knight, right?
Nope.
Maybe that's the movie I was thinking of that you haven't seen. We should try to do that soon at some point. I'd be really excited to talk about that.
Hey, if we want to hit 32 episodes, Tim, we can try. I'm not going to make any promises, but we can try.
Oh boy. If it wasn't if we still had more time to bank some episodes, and then if it wasn't going to be I'm expecting, especially end of September, early October is going to be pretty busy for me, but we'll see. Who knows? One non-spoiler thing I do want to also just mention real quick, before we go into spoilers, is I love the music in this. I think the music is really well. It fits it. Again, it's that kind of like, it's like a little cheesy-ish, but it has that kind of, schlocky, like horror kind of EC comic book vibe to it that fits really well with it.
Yeah. No, Creepshow's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. I don't quite hold it in the same regard that you do. I don't have it up in the sort of upper echelon of like the horror genre, but I think it's a solid anthology, and yeah, it is good. So with that said, we should start talking about the stories themselves. So we'll give the spoiler warning here. I think it's worth doing. I will just briefly mention, usually I like this being more in the middle, but obviously because it's an anthology we're doing this quite early. But just before we go into the spoilers, go to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and maybe if you'd be willing to support us for as little as $1 per month, and you get a bonus episode of Screams After Midnight every month that's exclusive to Patreon. You actually get 4 of them in October, because it's October, it's the October-thon, it's special. You get the entire Wishmaster franchise. So you can go and check those out. But we are going to dive in to the stories here. So the first one, not counting the wraparound, which is basically just what I said. It's a kid with a horror comic, and the dad's like, "No, you are not reading this crap," kind of thing.
And I do like that. It is kind of like, the dad is so over dramatic, and then I like that the kid seems like really evil. Like it's not like a G shucks like kid who's like doesn't know right from wrong. Like he seems like, nah, like I want to worship this like ghoul creature and like torture my dad. Who he's not really like too like talky like the Crypt Keeper, but you do get introduced to the Creep, who's kind of like the host of these this comic book or whatever. But I like him, and I'm interested to see. I believe they're bringing him back for the show. I'm kind of interested to see what kind of role he's going to play there.
Yeah. So we have Father's Day, which is the first story, and this is Ed Harris, who's very young. I mean, he's not like super young, but he's probably the youngest I've ever seen him in this movie. Because even when I think of him from like The Abyss, that's from the end of the 80s. So this is younger Ed Harris. He is like the new husband into this rich family, and they're telling him this story of this crazy aunt who comes every year on Father's Day to go to the grave of her husband, who was killed on the day of the tragedy. The Father's Day.
Was it her husband or her father?
Wasn't it her father who killed her husband? Was that another thing?
I always get confused about how the family relations in this work. Because I always like forget who's who. But I don't know. I assume because he. Oh wait. Are you talking about the guy that gets shot in the?
Yeah, it's her father kills her husband or her boyfriend.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I was skipping ahead. I was thinking of the I want my Father's Day cake. I was thinking.
No. I'm talking about the backstory here, which is the.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Because remember, we get the little flashbacks where like, the old man's like buying for his cake. He's like, "I want my cake. I want my cake." we basically get a zombie who rises from the grave, going, "I want my cake. Where's my cake? Where's my cake?" Because when you boil it down to its simplest parts, all this really is just building up a little bit of backstory. Ed Harris goes out to the grave and gets attacked by the zombie, and then the zombie comes into the house and like kills everyone. Basically, that's the gist of it.
Yeah, because you see the flashback that he gets killed because he's like this old man. He's like he just wants his cake for Father's Day, and the daughter or whatever is like her busily trying to make it, but he keeps banging his cane and yelling, and like he obviously you get the idea that he's has been like an abusive parent or something, and she's just so fed up that she hits him in the back of the head and kills him. and then he comes back and gets his revenge, and then he eventually ends up getting his cake, which is I forget which character it is, but it's someone's head that he takes and puts candles on and everything.
He also has telepathic abilities, telekinetic abilities, because he moves a tombstone onto Ed Harris's head just by looking at it. So that's worth mentioning.
I always wonder, like, it seems to be moving so slow. I'm always like, oh, why doesn't he just get up out of the grave? Because he's like watching it like slowly move towards him.
Yeah, he just kind of lies there and screams. It's a very sort of comical thing, but it kind of fits the tone of the movie. So it's just kind of. I feel like it's a little too hard to feel bad for anyone here because they seem like there's such like a, rich piece of shit family. Like they all just are, they all just seem like they're constantly drunk and lying around, kind of like sniping at people. Yeah, they give them enough character. Like when it starts, like the brother of the family is like, don't worry, they're just making sure that you're. Not a gold digger like my wife.
Yeah.
Just there's a lot of jokes like that. It just kind of sets it up. The zombie effects fun. The flashback to him, the old man's pretty funny, and I did genuinely get a kick out of like the zombie just chanting that he wants his cake, because it basically became a thing like throughout the rest of the movie. Because when I was watching it, where I just keep joking constantly about people wanting their cake. He wants his cake and he eats it too.
Yeah. And then like this is a great one, like for any time you see like any horror person like having like an anniversary or something, or like even on like Father's Day, like I always see like lots of like pictures and gifs of him holding the head cake and stuff. It's a great image whenever you're celebrating any kind of horror milestone.
Oh, sure. I can't argue with that. It's a very simple story, though. Like I think this may actually be quite a quick discussion because I feel like some of the stories are very simple. They're just kind of,
Sure, yeah.
And this one kind of relies on the fun zombie makeup and the actors to kind of sell it. So it's not one of the strongest stories I think in the movie. It's fun and it does the job.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about it. The second story is the lonesome death of Jordi Verrill. In which a piece of kryptonite lands behind a farm, and Stephen King goes out to check it. He's a farmer, and this story is basically he touches the green goo from the meteorite, and there's those weird flashes when he thinks, oh, maybe I can sell this meteorite for high profit, and it flashes to like him sitting there, and there's like a scientist looking at it, like a curator going, oh, this is worth $300. Like, that's all that's what you think the peak of your success is here is 300.
Well, this is so funny because like it's he's obviously like such a poor farmer, and sure, like I guess money was a little different back then, but still, you think if you have this like crazy rare specimen that you would be wanting like thousands or millions of dollars. But I love in his fantasy he's asking for 200, like, and even the scientist is kind of cheap and is like, how about $50? And I'm like, nope, 200. Keep counting. It's really great.
200 big ones. And what I like later on though is that when stuff starts happening and he fantasizes about going to the doctor, it's the same guy who played the curator dude who's playing the doctor now. I like that little sort of that's probably my favorite part of the story, actually, those little flashes. But basically he touches the green goo, and where he touched it, like he has like grass and like weeds like growing from his fingers, and then anything else he touches also starts to grow foliage from and then so I mean by the end of the story he's basically a Swamp Thing, and like the entire place is like covered in and stuff. Of course, he does ultimately end the story by putting a shotgun in what used to be his head and pulling the trigger.
Super sad ending.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like most of the movies, or most of like the stories, usually have like shitty people in them, so you don't feel as bad. But like this guy he seems like all right. He seems like a little bit of a like not super smart, but other than that, it's not like he doesn't seem mean or anything.
There's a little clash of tones for me in this one. I mean, I like it, but like he is like overacting so much. Like he's doing this like cartoony character. Like his facial reactions, the way he speaks, everything's like a doy, You know, get me some money from this here meteor, and then he'll hit himself in the head like, I'm an idiot. Like, he's very much that type of character, but it ends with him committing suicide. It's like such a weird tonal shift.
It is really bizarre, and obviously, like, I'm a huge Stephen King fan, so like I love seeing him here, and like he's not the best actor, but like I love seeing him act anytime just because it delights me. And like this one is like super cheesy, but I don't know, it's so like over the top that it like works for me. And I do think like, he is really overacting, and he's doing all these like, like turns of phrase that I feel like you wouldn't normally hear, like someone like, slapping their head, like, oh, Jordy Verrill, you lunkhead, like, but it works in like the, kind of the tone they're going for. And then, maybe minus the abrupt suicide ending.
I always want to talk about the fact that at one point the ghost of his father shows up to try and convince him to not go in the bathtub because this parasite or whatever is wants water. This disease wants water. But of course he goes in because he can't take it anymore. He's getting too itchy. He tries to like clean it off, and of course that's just what makes it into like super foliage, and everything just turns into grass and whatever.
And I do like his fantasy, like when he pours water on the meteor and it breaks, and then I like he has this fantasy of him back in the doctor's office, and the doctor's laughing at him like, "You think we're going to pay money for a broken meteor? Like you think it would still be worth something?" But
the value here isn't the shape of it. The value here is the unique alien properties that it has. If anything, you could now sell it to two different people. You could make twice as much money off of it. Oh dear, silly sausage he is. But that's the lonesome death of Jordy Verrill. This is a decent little story. Bit goofy, but fun.
And I don't know too much about the original story, but I do think this is based on The Color from Outer Space. I don't know how how much of it is, but I think it is at least somewhat related to it.
Yeah, actually what's funny is that he's watching wrestling on TV, and you can actually hear the commentator's Vince McMahon's voice, which is funny because I've never really watched wrestling from this era, because this is like before, because this is 1980, so this is like before WrestleMania. But I don't even think it was called the WWF at this point. I think it was the WWF at this point. But it was just funny hearing Vince McMahon's voice, and then even like recognizing Bob Backlund as one of the wrestlers. Just a really weird little touch, just because it's like pre what you think of as the start of modern wrestling. Obviously it was still a big thing, but it wasn't what everyone knows it as today. But anyway, so the third story is called Something to Tide You Over. That's a very witty title for this story. And I have to ask a question here. Were you ever sure exactly? Yeah, I mean, I guess it's Liam, not Liam Neeson, sorry, Leslie Nielsen's wife. Because I was really unclear for a while if it was his wife or his daughter that he was upset about Ted Danson dating.
I think I thought it was his wife.
I think it's his wife, yeah. But he so Leslie Nielsen comes over to Ted Danson and shows him a tape of that he's got Becky, his wife, right? And he's going to have to come with him, and he holds him at gunpoint and takes him to the beach, makes him get into a hole that's been dug, and drag in sand so that he's up to his neck in sand, and he's on the shore, and then brings out a TV and shows a live feed of that Becky's doing the same thing further down the beach, and you're seeing the water coming in gradually until he will presumably be drowned. And there's a lot of good dialogue here. There's a lot of quipping from Ted Danson and Leslie Nielsen. And Leslie Nielsen, you're so used to him being a comedy actor that seeing him doing this sinister role is kind of fun. Watching him play this kind of thing. But this is the one when I was saying there was one that's super Tales from the Crypt. This was the one that felt so Tales, because this was like him doing this bad person doing all this awful shit to people, and then the zombies are the people that he killed coming back and killing them at the end of the story. I will say it's a little bit weird though that both this and the first story both end with zombies coming back and coming to the house. That is a little bit strange. I do like him watching on his monitors though, and watching it and just gleefully was like, oh, I'm killing people, this is great. And he's got a lot of VHS tapes that suggest that he's done this before. This is not the first people he's done this to. He likes doing this.
Yeah, it seems very specific, especially like the fact that he does it to both people. Like, it's not like, he just wants to kill him, like in because you think you would maybe went different ways or something, but it seems like he has like maybe a specific thing about the ocean. And I like the way he kind of describes it, because it seems like he's kind of almost giving them a little bit of a chance, like he's saying, like, hey, if you can calm yourself and hold your breath real long, like, you just might be able to survive it. Like, I like the way he's kind of toying with them a little bit.
Yeah,
so it feels very sinister.
Yeah, so, and it's also fun to see him like get scared when the zombies are coming for him, and he's like trying to barricade himself in and all the rest of it. Yeah. So no, it's good.
Yeah, and I like the end with him too, where he's like, he's like almost like deranged at that point. He's like, well, I can hold my breath a long time. It's like, well, you're definitely gonna die. But
yeah, and they don't just like strangle him or something like that. They actually bury him in the sand, just like he did to them. Yeah. So it ends with him in the same situation. So again, it's super Tales from the. It's like the comeuppance of the awful person. Like, it's very much that. So no, I actually really like this one. I think this one has the right kind of twisted sense of humor, but what it really has is two good actors really playing off of each other, which really makes it work.
And especially cool, like seeing them, like I think even like Ted Danson, you don't really usually think of him in horror movies, but I was like, oh, he was like really good in this, and it's so interesting, like seeing him so young, like obviously, seeing him like. On like Cheers and stuff, but at this point now, know him more for stuff like Curb and The Good Place, where you just kind of think of him with that like white waft of hair.
Sure. Yeah.
It's funny seeing him like, oh yeah, he was like a young guy once.
Yeah, it's only a couple of years before the start of Cheers, actually, so it's right before he did that. But no, it's cool. No, it's a fun one. I do like that one quite a bit. Something to tide you over. The fourth story is The Crate, and this is actually easily the longest story in the movie. This one, like, because the movie's 2 hours long, and this one is like 45 to 50 minutes of the runtime. It is actually a really long story, which is not to complain, because I actually ended up really liking this one. So
yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, I'd probably say this is like my favorite. If I had to pick one, I really like this one.
It may be mine. And what I like about it is that it really spends time building its character, so when it eventually gets to the point where like there's a twist, because it's basically there's like a crate that's found under like the stairs in this like university, and it's like got this deranged monkey in it.
I forget where I heard this from, but I always was under the impression it was supposed to be the Abominable Snowman, which like it doesn't look how you would normally think it, but I do think there is something, like it might say Himalayas on it or something like that. But
no, it says Arctic Expedition.
Arctic. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, essentially, it just looks like a weird monkey with like sharp teeth.
Yeah, it's apparently been under there since 1834. That's the date that's on it, is 1834. So anyway, we're interested at the party to like Adrienne Barbeau, who's the wife of like one of the professors, and there's two professors, and one of them like goes to find the. He's told about this from the janitor or whatever, and he goes to find it, and we get this bit of an attack, and it's him like dodging and running and all the rest of it, and ultimately it gets very bloody, and the thing like kills some people, and he calls in the other guy, like the husband of Adrienne Barbeau, and he comes in and like sees what's happened, and like obviously it's this is going to be suspicious. There's been like a murder essentially, and he comes in and he actually starts mopping up the crime scene, and it's like, why is he doing this? Why is he doing all this? Because one of the running things throughout this story is that he keeps fantasizing about different ways that he can kill his wife. Because she's awful. Adrienne Barbeau does a great performance in this, because she is just the most contemptible, annoying, nagging person the entire time. She belittles him at every chance she gets.
She's like always drinking, like she's always yeah, just like constantly nagging him and putting him down. And I don't know. I think maybe I kind of got the sense that like seems like maybe she might like flirt with other people too or something. And but yeah, just like a really just always like drunk and boisterous and like really like a an awful person. Like I mean, to be fair, I mean, it doesn't mean you should feed her to this weird crate creature, but they do definitely set up a good job though of her being like horrible.
Well, no, it's the reason why it works is because it's the sense of humor in this is just right. That it doesn't matter that it's not really justifiable. It's just kind of funny because you can kind of see when he gets the ID because he's taking her to the back to the thing because he's got the monkey or the ape back in its cage, and he's like, hey, like go and look in here. And he like lures her in, and it leads to her death. And he goes and dumps the crate somewhere, but we see at the end that it's gotten out. But he actually goes back to the other professor who's been staying at his place, because he's like in shock for everything that he's seen and what's happened. And he's like, "Yep, everything's fine, like everything's been dealt with." So he kind of gets his happy ending, which is really weird. So it is what it is, but that is the gist of this story. But it does take a long time because they spend quite a long time at the party building up her and building up the two professors, and then the suspense of the actual like monster like attacking and running around the building. So
it's a really great like idea, and then the building they do on it just really serves it. And then the creature like is like the look of it, but I feel like they don't overdo it, like they just show you kind of little bits and pieces here, but it really builds up the idea that there's something dangerous and scary in this crate. And and I'm excited to see Adrienne Barbeau back. She's going to be in the series,
that's true.
so that should be cool.
That's true. And it's just a fun one. It's a fun one. It's the dark sense of humor where it's like, oh, I finally found a way to get away with killing my wife. Because the little flashes he has where he imagines like just shooting her or whatever. Yeah. Like all that stuff is really funny, and again in a really dark way. So it's a really nice little fun story. Which leads us to
and again, it was just I guess we haven't really talked about it that much, but again, they use like a lot of comic book effects, and like so I think there's like some really cool stuff like that they do with like colors, and like when the creatures appear, that it just it gives it like this really interesting like visual style.
Often when there's like a flashback to something, there'll be like a border, there'll be like a comic book style border around it or something like that.
And I like, especially with the crate, I liked a lot of like the lighting stuff. Like there's always like I think like when they're in the school, and I think when like the creature pops out, they did like some these kind of like red glow lights I thought looked really cool.
Yeah, I had a good look to it. I agree. Which does lead us unfortunately to the weakest story, which is they're creeping up on you, which is what's this word here? Mysophobia, if I'm pronouncing that right. Where he is terrified of cockroaches, and possibly more than that, but definitely cockroaches.
Yeah, I always like, honestly, like when I think of the movie, I always even forget that like this one exists. It's just it's not a bad idea for the story, because basically I forget what the main guy's name, but it's like this rich older guy that obviously is a very, very, very bad person. He's racist and clearly has like some dirty business stuff, but so they do a good job of like building up this like shitty character, so it is like satisfying when you see the end. But I don't like the look of this one, where it's like he's living in this like weird, like sterile, like almost futuristic kind of room.
Yeah, it feels sci-fi almost the way it looks, because it's got like a it's like a quarantine panic room. And the reason why everything happens is because it was like a blackout, which like the defenses, the cockroach defense system goes down, and of course they immediately just swarm him and eventually kill him, and they end up crawling out of his mouth and everything else.
And there's like one line that I really like it where he so he had like an employee or something that committed suicide. I think because he fired him, and then like I think it's the widow is calling him on the phone and like, telling him how bad of a person he is, and she hopes that he rots in hell. And I just like he has this very like calm delivery where like he asks her like, "Oh, can you tell me who gave you my personal phone number? I'd like to fire them, please." And it's just like, so there's a few like bits and pieces here and there that I thought were funny, but like, yeah, overall, just I don't like the look of it. And like there's he's talking to like this maintenance worker or whatever on the outside, and like they do like this kind of weird effect where like he's looking in like a and it's kind of like a distorted lens kind of way, and it's just a very, I don't know, it's just very odd the way it's filmed. It kind of feels like it doesn't really fit as well with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mind the look if it was in something else. It just feels out of place in this movie.
Yeah. And like I don't want to say that it's necessarily terrible. Like it's a fine story, but like you said, every anthology always has like a weaker one, and yeah, this definitely is it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, yeah, that's just kind of the case with the final story. And in the epilogue, of course, the dad ends up dead because the kids get a voodoo doll.
yeah, he sends away for a voodoo doll, and it just ends with him like poking him. And I think like a while back, I might have taken like a screenshot or did a little video of this and was posting it like on my wall just because the kid reminded me of me, because he's just like stabbing this little doll saying, "That's what you get for taking away my comic books." It's like I can relate to this kid.
Yes, unfortunately. You creepy bastard. Yeah, I mean it's a fun movie overall. I think The Crate and Something to Tide You Over are my two favorites, and then it's a little hard. Like if I had to rank them, I think The Crate would definitely be my number one, and the Cockroaches would definitely be the last. And then the middle is a little hard. I would probably go Something to Tide You Over, then maybe Jordy Verrill, and then Father's Day. But I don't know. Sometimes, depending on my mood, maybe might switch that up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone is at least somewhat entertaining in its own right, and it's an interesting style. It's a cool concept. I think the special effects look really good. You got like that good 80s practical effects going on. And to go along with the tone, it does a good job of feeling pulpy pretty much the entire time. It always feels like it never feels like it's getting malicious. It always feels like the tongue's just slightly in its cheek. Yeah. So
yeah, like that's why, like, I don't know if it would work as well with people who maybe haven't grown up with it. If they're watching it for the first time today, like it might seem like a little cheesy or something. But again, that's like what they're going for. It's like, yeah, no, it is supposed to be, somewhat cheesy, lurid, kind of pulpy, taste to it, which I really, really love.
Yeah. But then you have to rate it, Timmy. So.
So I'm gonna give it a really, really high score. It's and I didn't even mention, I also have the comic book they did of it. They Bernie Wrightson actually illustrated a whole comic book of this, which they just re-released last year, so it should be easy to find. But if it's just the same exact stories, but you get really good Bernie Wrightson art if anyone is into that. Don't know why I brought that up. I was just thinking, I actually have quite a bit of Creepshow merchandise, so I was just thinking of that.
Of course you do.
But no, I really, really like this. I'm going to give it a 9. I think it's fantastic. I can't go perfect. Honestly, if it wasn't for that, not really liking that last story, if they replace it with something a little better, or maybe just cut it out, so maybe moved a little faster, I'd probably even go higher than that. But unfortunately, that last story drags it down a bit for me, so I'm just going to go straight up 9. But again, I really, really love this.
I do not feel that strongly about Creepshow. I think it's a fun movie. I think a few of the stories are really good. The last one drags it down. Tom Atkins not having a mustache drags it down.
That's true. Fair.
Yeah. So I think for me, it is a really solid 7 out of 10.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't want to upset Timmy, but it's got. I'd say it's got two stories that are like solid dates. It's got a couple of sort of sevens-ish, really high sixes, and then it's got that last story which is like, like a 4 or something like that. So I would go with a 7 overall, I think, for the movie. But that is Creepshow, and that is the first movie we have done in this Octoberthon of 2019, and we have 30 more episodes coming your way, 4 of which are exclusive on patreon.com/MailFizzTV at the $1 tier or up, so you can go check out those. That's the entire Wishmaster franchise, which will start going up on the weekend. But yes, so check out that. You can like and subscribe. You can let us know what you think of Creepshow in the comments below. You can get us on Twitter at mailed. You can get us at mailed_fuzz for mailed fuzz in general, but you can get us specifically for Screams After Midnight at Screams Midnight. And did we have some entertaining tweets on there?
Yeah.
In fact, I just got a notification during this very recording that a tweet was liked, and I was like, I don't recognize this tweet, and it was because Tim tweeted out something about his recording and then liked it himself with his own account, because Tim likes to do that from time to time.
Hey, there's no rule against it.
That's true. There's no rule.
If you're proud of what you do, you should like it.
But you can check out Twitter. Also, rate the podcast on your podcast app. You listen to the audio version or Apple Podcasts or whatever else, because it does get us in front of more audience members, because it shows us out a little bit more. So go do that. Nice 5-star review. But so that is us, and this is the beginning of the Octoberthon, and it is worth mentioning, we don't have a date yet, but at the time of recording, although we might have mentioned it on other stuff because we're recording this in advance, but me and Tim are doing a one-off Streams After Midnight special towards the end of the month. We're going to watch a movie together live on stream, and we're going, and when we announce the date and we announce what movie it's going to be, you get time to get the movie yourself, and we'll do a bit of Q&A as well. So that's coming late in October. Also remember to send in your top 50 or top 25 horror movies of all time to mftvquestions@gmail.com, so we can do the results show of that at the end of the month, and make your votes count. I think that's everything. That's everything I need to tell you about. So that is us. So happy October, guys. Let's hopefully have a fun one, and we'll see you on the continuous countdown to Halloween 2019. So thank you very much. Keep watching scary movies, especially this month, and we will see you next time.